How you doing out there? This is going to be answers. Let's see, let's get right to it. Laurie said, how did I get into model railways? Well, let's see, we were living in London in 1953, and my dad brought home from Hamleys, and a great big Hamleys bag. It wasn't plastic in those days, it was paper. He brought home a wind-up Hornby train set. And besides that, while we were living over there, we would travel around by train all the time, and I would always want to go look at the engine. Oh, Dad, take me up to see the locomotive. I want to see it. I want to see the engine. So, we'd go up there and I'd see those red buffer beams all smeared with grease and grime and everything, and see all the motion, all that gleaming steel, and sometimes not so gleaming, and I was pretty impressed. So when we got back from Europe, my dad bought me a Lionel train set and put a board up in the attic, but it was a diesel. I didn't want a diesel, I wanted a steam engine. So anyway, now I got two of them. Laurie and Withwing wanted to know how I got into British Rail. Well, that's it, that's the story. Living in London, seeing British trains and riding in British trains, and the compartments and all that. It was a far cry from anything I'd ever experienced before, and I just thought it was cool as all get out. I'm going to finish that story about how I got into building this model. I'm going to stretch it out a little bit. So, in about 2002, I was over in London, and I went into Hamleys up in the train section, and I bought an analog train set. It was the Flying Scotsman, and I used to set it up and run it around the kitchen table or the dining room table every once in a while, but it wasn't really that interesting. I tried to get my grandson interested, and he really wasn't all that fascinated with it, but there was joy in it, but just not enough to keep me going at it. So then later on in 2012, I was back over there again, and I decided to go back to Hamleys. Hamleys kind of important in the family because that's where the wind-up set came from. And so I went back to Hamleys, and I was up there in the train department, and I was talking to this Scotsman, and he was telling me about the various trains and everything, and it was pretty interesting. And he said, he pointed to one in a case there. It was a Class 50. I didn't know anything about a Class 50 at the time. And he said, now this one has sound. I said, got sound? Explain that to me. And he tried to explain it a little bit. He said, Bob, I'm going to take that. I'll take that one, and if it takes a special controller, I'll need that. So I came home with a Select and that, and the old track from the other train set. And when we got home, and I set that up on the dining room table, and I put that Select to sound on, man, I was hooked. Here I'm hearing this whole startup sequence for a diesel. I was just taken by it. And I didn't really know what to do with it. And a month later or so, my sister came out to visit us. And I was telling her all about it, blah, 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 blah. And she said, well, why don't you build a layout? And I thought, well, maybe I will. So I started the old Farland in 2012. And it was in a raw basement space, not a finished area. And the wife, she didn't like that. People would come to visit and look around, and they'd see her wedding dress or something hanging up in the side there, and old junk sitting over in the corner. And so she said, it's got to be a finished space. We've got to get this finished off. So we talked to we came up with a plan. We talked to some contractors. We found one to work with. And about 2 months, we had this. And it's a fantastic place to work in. It's absolutely wonderful. And I built Farland. I built the other layout, and it had all kinds of everything you can do wrong in a layout. I made that mistake on the old Farland house. It was so screwed up. Trains were constantly derailing and coming uncoupled and everything else. And I was really frustrated by it. And I vowed, if I ever have another chance to build this layout right here, I am not going to make those same mistakes. I am going to be absolutely certain that the engineering is perfect on it. And my job was an engineering-based job. My career was, and so I knew lots about it. And I've learned to love electrical stuff. Didn't really know much about that. I certainly understood the mechanical stuff, level and straight and all that. So I built this one, and it runs like a dream. It runs so smooth, you could put a train on it. You could put 3 trains on it. You could turn them on, let them run, and they'll run all day long. And you could be upstairs watching TV or taking a nap or whatever, come down here in the evening, they're still going around. It's great when people come over because, I can turn on a few trains and let them run while we're talking, and the people are saying, wow, no derailments. What's going on here, When I run my trains like that, everything comes apart. Yeah, not on this layout. I mean, okay, I do have the occasional little problem, but not very often. And it's a joy to run. It's fun to run because you're not having trouble all the time. Anyway, let's keep moving here. So Dave wants to know, when will my layout be completed? I think he's making a joke there. And I'm going to say I'll get it done about the time he's finished changing his. Then Matt wants to know, what is the overall size of my layout? Okay, this room is 21'6" that way by 21'6" this way. But there's a piece cut out of it over there, and there's some extra over there where my desk is. The track is 120 feet long. The center one is 120 feet long, and actually it's 119 feet 8 inches if you really want to know. And it takes, I don't know, 1.5 to 2 minutes for a train to get all the way around. That's how big it is. So Mark says, do I have a separate channel for my N-scale 1 to 160 Colorado USA layout? No, it's not a separate channel. It's on the Farland Howe channel, but it's called Colorado Northwestern. And there's about 19 of them, and you can watch them all. If you go to my homepage, there's a playlist there, and it'll run you right through all of them. Graham and George, what area will I work on next when the crossing is finished? Since the crossing is about finished. Yeah, well, I still have some more work to do on it. I'm going to add a couple more sensors to it, and I'm going to trim some of the timings a little bit. It works fine. I mean, it's a model railway. It's not perfect like the full-size stuff has to be. So next, I'm going to work on I'm going to finish up the main House Street station. When I get that done, I'm going to finish up the shed, the steam shed, and the diesel maintenance area. And I'm going to put a little yard back in there. I know just how I'm going to do it. So that's going to be extra track and a little bit more board. When I get that done, I'm going to get a model boat, a model ship, and build it for here. And get some buoys and get some more small boats and such, and put the water in here and get that all finished up. When I get that done, I'm going to do the castle. So the castle will be the last thing. James and Cy, do I want to go back and change anything on the layout? Well, what I generally see is people, they want to change things that don't work very well, you know, and that are awkward or don't work right or something. But, you know, honestly, I don't really have much of a problem. Most everything works pretty good. So the answer is really no. Steve wants to know, what grasses do I use? Well, I got some over here. I use a lot of this. I think it's mostly for war gamers. But I also use, I buy it from a lot of different folks. I get it from a place called Scenic Express here in the U.S. It's cheap and fast. I also use a little of this from Woodland Scenics. It's I got several colors, and I always put some of that in with the long grasses because it kind of fills in underneath. And grass is not all long. It's always got different heights in it. Steve wants to know how I create my fields. Well, I do different things, you know. I use a little scatter. There's scatter over here. Where can you see it? Scatter here, and then there's some static grass down here. Different colors static grass, different colors scatter. I don't like to do things all the same, just have one color all over everything, because it doesn't look natural. And natural, there's variations. You know, the soil's a little bit different, or the rock is closer to the surface or whatever, and it looks different. It's not the same color. Peter wants to know how wide my platforms are. Well, that one over there at House Street, the island platform, that's 31 feet scale. So whatever that is divided by 4 millimeters. And I think that this one over here is 32 feet. If you ever want to know how big a platform is anywhere in the world, since the tracks are always 4 foot 8.5 inches apart, you can just scale that and figure out how many widths of the gauge of the track the platform is, and that'll tell you how wide it is. You got to do a little math. It's not that hard. You just measure it. You can measure it on the screen and print it out. Let's see. Tom wants to know, have I resolved the switches at the Farland How? And I think he's talking about the Far Moor Junction. I have this chart, and it tells me how to set all 4 toggle switches. As near as I can tell, there's no real pattern to reduce it to less than 4 toggle switches. If I had a little computer running over there, and I bought my first Arduino and I'm going to start looking at those, and it's possible that I'll be able to create routes and just push a button for the route. So if I want the green route, I push the green button, and if I want the gray route, I push the gray button or whatever. Okay, Norfolk Rover. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. I guess it's Norfolk Rover. Wanted to know what's my favorite train. Well, I'd say any train pulled by either a Class 50 or a Class 37 would be my favorite train. Now, we've been talking about the level crossing. So before we go here, let's go have a look at it, and I'll show you where I'm at. The speaker I got from Block Signaling was a tiny little thing, about 8 millimeters across. So I got a bigger speaker, and I glued it up to the roof of this. It sounds better. I got these little street lights in. Looks really good when the light's a little bit lower, so I'll turn it down. So the timing's not perfect. The yellow's not long enough. But if I move the sensor any far back on the platform over there, it'll be, if there's a train sitting in the platform, the arms will be down. And I don't want that. So I moved it outside the zone. I mean, I don't know. I guess I could move it back a foot or so. But it can't be perfect. It's a model railway. It is not a full size, full size. It's not the prototype. It's a model railway. The fact that it works at all is a miracle. It's got all the elements I wanted. I'm really happy with it. And I hope you are too. It pleases me. It makes me really happy when it works. Okay, bye from Farland. I hope you found it interesting. See you next time. Bye.